Chapter 4, Their Fitlachath, First Battle Part 2. I have orders from Subfleet Command, said Ados Raiwa's image. All ships are to enter planar space at the designated times. I'll be sending you our unit's designated time shortly. After breaking through, we are to quickly reassemble and form a column. A corner of Lafayer's tactical control counter was displaying the shared standard time for the forces garrisoned at Optic. Underneath that number, another time could be seen, the hour and minute they would be rushing through the portal. Listen up, said the Hecto commander, expression stern. Our objective is the complete capture and annihilation of the unidentified bubbles. If we let a single conveyance ship fly away, we've lost. I hope I don't need to tell you that losing our first battle would be miserable. Any questions? A pause. All right, good. Let's regroup in planar space. Ships seemingly belonging to units that had headed off before them were already getting sucked into the Optic portal. But the Bosroar's takeoff time had yet to come. Of course, Lafayer would have minded it more if they weren't going to be heading through at max acceleration. She wanted nothing more than to plunge into the portal at full speed, before the battle. Other captains drifting in the nearby area were evidently of much the same sentiment, but soon enough, the time was at hand. And we're off, said Lafayer, the thrill of the moment buoying her spirits. The hand within the control gauntlet clenched into the shape that gave rise to full acceleration. The Bosroar's main engines roared to life, while the glorious propulsor flames of the consort ships spouted in tandem. Supervisor, prepare the space-time bubble generators. Right away. The Optic portal, the phosphorescent sphere before them, loomed steadily larger within her frocross. Generate the space-time bubble, she commanded. Generator engines all clear and ready to go, reported Samson, his tone now serious and totally different from before. Confirming bubble generation. Crossing portal in E-60 seconds, said Sabash. Initiate countdown starting at E-30, said Lafayer, following standard protocol. So the countdown commenced. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, passing through, said Sabash. Promptly pinpoint the location of the lead assault ship. Where on the planar space side of a portal a bubble would end up was strictly up to chance. Appearing on the side opposite Ados Raiwa's ship was more than possible. Luckily, the Gamrogr happened to have manifested relatively close to their position. They were about a third of the portal's circumference apart. The space-time bubble of the Gamrogr cycled repeatedly through the stationary and mobile states in order to lose speed and make it easier for the assault ships under its command to gather once again. Keep pace, directed Lafayer. It was the senior star pilot, Sabash, whose job it was to maneuver the space-time bubble now, not hers. Yes, ma'am. Sabash changed the bubble's direction of locomotion and then switched it to the complete mobile state. Meanwhile, the planar space map reflected how the consort ships were everywhere headed to positions behind their own lead assault ships. Lafayer's line of sight darted to and fro. Where's the enemy? While the enemy space-time bubbles were technically unidentified, there was little else they could reasonably be. They were still far-flung and attempting, at present, to disperse. They aimed to return with the information they accrued, even if only a single ship of theirs made it back alive. Fragmentary though the information was, amounting almost solely to the number of ships racing to intercept them and the time it took those ships to prepare, the enemy's analyst systems could press in on a full picture of the invading star forces, much akin to a geologist's ability to accurately infer a planet's environment through a single piece of rock. Their bravery is certainly praiseworthy, Lafayer mused, but on the Star Force's honor, we mustn't let a single ship escape. That being said, as a mere Manuasker, assault ship captain, there wasn't much she could do. She was to follow the lead assault ship and hope the chances to fire the antiproton cannons came soon and often. That was all. At last, the 6 vessels of Assault Unit 1 had convened. Soon after reshuffling the battle array, the Gamrogr switched to its total mobile state. Needless to say, the Bosroar followed suit. It was third in the line. Thus, Assault Unit 1 joined the larger formation it was part of, Assault Squadron 1058. They were drawing nearer to the enemy. The enemy reversed course, gaining distance from the Optic portal. This spurred Assault Squadron 1058 to spread its wings the goal, to curb the enemy's range. 8 smaller mass bubbles split off from the unidentified spacetime bubbles. An interbubble communication from the Gamroger, reported Ekriwa. Perform spacetime fusion. Leifir gave Sabash a slight nod. They instantly intuited the unit commander's plan. The enemy's smaller bubbles were most likely a salvo of mobile spacetime mines, or simply mines for short. Assault ships were extremely weak to these mines, which sailed across planar space without outside direction using their own individual spacetime bubble generators. As such, they ought at least to bolster their defense by converging together. The 6 ships of Assault Unit 1 fused their respective bubbles into one larger aggregate bubble. Hecto Commander Ados Raiwa's image returned, now that EM communication was again feasible. I don't think the situation needs explaining. Let's just avoid the immediate peril for the time being. All ships, conduct your information links. The Gamrogra's directives were overlaid upon Leifir's Frocross. She equipped her control gauntlet anew and directed the Bossroar to the designated point before glancing at the planar space map. The bubbles that were all too likely mines were hurtling straight for them. It seemed that her first opponent in her first battle would be a cadre of soulless death machines. Prepare the antiproton cannons. Releasing safety, said Sabash. Preparations complete. And the multi-turret laser cannons? She asked Ekriwa. The deputy star pilot had already finished readying the mobile cannons for operation, her expression meek and mild. 20 seconds until estimated space-time fusion, said Sabash, who thereafter began the countdown. Through her Frocross, Leifir could sense the space-time bubble's inner surface was beginning to seethe and froth. The space-time particles the mine was emitting were now penetrating their bubble with enthusiasm. It wasn't long before their 2 pocket universes would merge. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fusion, said Sabash. A hole opened before their eyes, yawning wider and wider each passing moment, and they could feel what lay beyond. Confirmed to be United Humankind Mobile Spacetime Mine, said Sabash. No sooner did he say it than the yellow blips on the planar space map turned red. They were the enemy all right. Leifir screwed her eyes shut and focused her Frocross. She put her right index finger on the antiproton cannon trigger and lightly flexed the fingers of her left hand to point the Bossroar's bow toward the mine. Atros Raiwa's command resounded. All ships, fire. The assault ship's mass made the recoil of the antiproton cannons quite minimal. They felt virtually no impact whatsoever, not even at the moment of firing. 6 streaks of antiproton currents shot toward the mine, which writhed in their whirl and, subsequently, scattered in pieces. The mine may have met an anticlimactically swift end, but that only marked the beginning of the battle proper. Our first task is complete. Undo space-time fusion, said Adersrua. While the Star Force's assault corps were preoccupied with mines, the enemy patrol ships had taken the opportunity to slip through the encirclement meant to trap them and gained a considerable amount of distance to boot. Mass differences were part of the reason why. Fragments of wrecked mines were hiding in the bubbles of each assault ship. The velocity of a space-time bubble was determined by, and only by, its mass, which here meant the weight of the planar spaceships plus whatever other matter was in the bubbles. Assault Unit 1 formed a column once again and gave chase, though relatively more slowly. However, though the matter that made up what used to be a mine was slowing them down, they were still faster than a patrol ship. Leifir checked the map and saw 4 assault units were pursuing the enemy ships, with Assault Unit 1 at the head of the pack. It's just like back then, murmured Jint. He stood close by, with nothing keeping him busy. Only now the positions are reversed. Yeah, Leifir nodded. Once, they had stayed aboard the patrol ship Gosloth. The ship had been by itself when it was ganged up on by enemy assault ships and destroyed. And now, these enemy ships that were probably patrol ships were facing a struggle even more desperate than the Goslothas. But that doesn't mean we're clear from danger. We'll be among the first to fly into the fray. It would be strange if we didn't sustain any damage. We might even get completely wiped out. That is so like you, Jint smiled weakly. To tell you the truth, I've been scared to hell and back this whole time. Leifir scanned the vicinity to make sure nobody was eavesdropping. To tell you the truth, so am I. Now that one skirmish was behind her, the thrill of the moment had given way to icy terror. Something else was bothering her too. Did Hecto Commander Ados Raiwa intend to have them plunge right into the fray, just like that? Challenging a patrol ship with only 6 assault ships was well past brave, it was reckless. Have we been saddled with an incompetent commander? Not that there was a thing she could do about it, apart from offering her opinion via interbubble communication. This is quite the drag, thought Lafier, biting her lip. I can't raise a peep in protest, no matter how absurd the orders may be. I'm happy to hear that, Jint beamed. How does my being afraid put you at ease? Beats me, Jint shrugged. I guess I just feel like it'd be kinda unfair if I was the only one shaking in my boots. I don't think there's a single person on this ship who isn't afraid. Her eyes turned to Daiho's cage. With one exception. Daiho's courage is unparalleled when he's not being forced to take a bath, Jint agreed. The only star pilot on the Bossroar with real combat experience was Mechanics Lie-Wing star pilot Samson. He had participated in the Rikakar Yukersauter Skerek clash at the Skerech Portal C 3 years prior. Yet, even he was clearly on edge, his typical cheery manner gone as his gaze was fixed on his console. 12 minutes until estimated space-time fusion. Sabash always seemed calm. What was on Ekryua's mind, meanwhile, was just as inscrutable as ever. It wasn't hard to take the tension that gripped the bridge as none too debilitating, none too lax. Lafier could feel her spirits rising again. However, it wasn't as though her fear had up and vanished. She noticed her lips were trembling slightly. She closed her mouth tight, and the trembling ceased. The Gamroger, flying at the front, decelerated. She must have been thinking what Lafier was thinking, that it would be wiser to wait for the other units to catch up. That, or she'd received a directive from Glagumsaber, Squadron Command. Changing estimated space-time fusion time, said Sabash at once. Good grief, said Jint, relieved. The way things looked, I thought we'd be heading in with just 6 ships. SY Machikargana, Assault Unit 4, had caught up. With 12 ships in total, the Gamroger once again switched to the total mobile state. They formed 2 columns of 6 ships each and sailed after the patrol ships Bubbles in hot pursuit. 10 minutes until estimated space-time fusion. In other words, they had nothing to do for another 10 minutes. Lafier got to her feet in front of the control counter, crossed her arms, and glared at the planar space map. Elsewhere, the battle was already raging. Assault ship Bubbles were swarming around enemy Bubbles. Bubbles of augmented mass were splitting back into smaller bubbles. Recalling a video record of a certain land world that she'd seen as a child, Lafier knitted her brow. This was just like how those agile carnivores reared to tear apart their prey, and this sector had turned into the Ov's hunting grounds. Lafier's Bossroar was another hound in the hunting party, and it chased down a patrol ship. The enemy is splitting their space-time bubble, Sabash reported. For lightweight Bubbles were now headed straight at them. Lafier clicked her tongue. So they still have some mines left. For what could they be, apart from mines? They'd probably deployed them as their last and final shred of hope. What's unit command saying? She asked Ekryua. Nothing ye. An interbubble communication from the command center. All ships sacked at will. I see, Lafier nodded. They no longer had the time to fuse together and wait on the lookout. Assault ships were weak to mines. Whether or not one survived an encounter with a mine was up to chance. Lafier strained her frocross and tried to prepare for space-time fusion, but the figure of a familiar someone loitering nearby distracted her. Jint, return to your station. As the ship's clerk, Jint's duties during battle consisted of maintaining the onboard environmental conditions. Whenever a ship took damage, there would be compartments that began leaking air. It was his job to evacuate the crew in those compartments and then seal them off before the pressure dropped too low in the other rooms. Put in different terms, up until they took damage, Jint was the least busy out of all of the battle positions on the ship. He shrugged at her. If we take a direct hit from a mine, will there even be any work for a clerk? True, thought Lafier. If they took a direct hit, not a man or woman on board would ever work another day. Not after the Bossroar was atomized without a trace. Do as you please. Only, make sure to stand in place. If you were to fall on top of me, it would hinder the piloting of the ship. I'll be careful. Jint stood behind and to the side of Lafier, much like a vice captain might. Enemy space-time bubbles, likely mines, approaching, said Sabash. The red dots were closing in on the series of blue dots representing Assault Unit 1. They passed to the side of the Gamma Ogre, still at the front, passed through the second in line, and lined up with the boss roar. Leifier could sense Jint gulping. Yet that trepidation lasted a mere moment, as the enemy mines flew further past. Just as it looked as though they'd keep flying after passing by every one of the blue dots, they took a sharp turn around and came for the assault ship all the way and back. Fusing with the Sidra Ogre. That was that assault ship's name. Leifier simply watched as the red and blue dot became one. They intertwined into a purple dot, signifying that an ally and the enemy were engaged in battle in that spot. Soon, however, purple reverted to blue. The assault ship had survived, albeit narrowly. The Sidra Ogre is dropping out, said Sabash. Due to taking in the mass of a mine, the Sidra Ogre's bubble had turned heavy, too heavy to keep up with the other ships even at total mobile state. But Hecto Commander Ados Raiwa clearly had no plans to let up their total mobile state velocity, hot on the enemy's heels. One of the remaining mines forced itself upon the fifth ship of Assault Unit 4. That ship was not as lucky as the Sidra Ogre. The purple dot disappeared dizzyingly quickly. And if things played out poorly, the boss roar would share their fate. Naturally, Assault Unit 4 didn't slow down either. The two units maintained their double-column formation and chased their prey. Other groups of assault ships were also catching up. 7 minutes until space-time fusion, amended Sabash. They were definitely drawing closer. So it's 10 against 1, muttered Jint. Not bad. This is even more similar to the Gosloth now, said Leifier under her breath. Then we've got to win this. You really do lack any common sense, said Leifier, taken aback. As though I'd ever accept a battle it's okay to lose. Jint shrugged. Good point. 6 minutes until space-time fusion. Sabash's calm voice permeated the bridge. You'd best return to your battle station, said Leifier. Against a patrol ship, you'll have a role to play. Right you are. Jint went back to the clerk's seat. Leifier realized her fear had dissipated at some point. Is that why he came by my side just now? She thought, glancing at Jint. But she soon dashed that idea from her mind. I can't believe he'd ever be that thoughtful. That said, it was indisputably the case that her terror had ebbed just by exchanging a sentence or two with Jint. Leifier focused her jitters back on the battle to come. The gap between them and the red dots gradually shrank. We will be fusing with the enemy in 1 minute. Sabash's tone of voice hadn't changed. The lead assault ship will be fusing in 32 seconds. Ekriua, when we fuse, conduct an information link with the Gamma Ogre, ordered Leifier. Roger, answered the deputy star pilot tersely. The Gamma Ogre and the lead assault ship of Assault Unit 4 nestled close to the red dot. Then, the two lead ships finally commenced fusion with the enemy bubble. 17 seconds until space-time fusion, the senior star pilot counted down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fusion. Leifier's Frokraz was hit with the patrol ship's massive form. She also perceived the several assault ships that had fused with the enemy's space-time before her, flying this way and that, as well as a group of fragments of what looked like the ruins of an assault ship. Was that the Gamma Ogre? Leifier feared. But soon she learned that was not the case. The information link with the lead ship had gone through. Welcome to the red-hot field of battle, Deca Commander Avriel, said Ados Raiwa. Proceed to the predetermined position. The patrol ship's mobile laser cannons fired their way. Getting hit by a laser wasn't too damaging a blow, but better to take no damage at all. After affirming their position using her spatiosensory perception, Leifier had the ship skid sideways, pointing the ship's bow right at the patrol ship. She pulled the antiproton cannon trigger. The antimatter, intent on reverting the matter that made up this universe to pure energy, advanced on the enemy ship as a violent, crashing torrent. Most of the antiprotons were deflected by the enemy's magnetic shielding, but a small percentage made it to its hull, thereby engendering small-scale explosions. They arrived at the point that the Gamma Ogre directed them to, sending torrent after torrent of antiprotons without restraint. The enemy fired its EM cannons. A ship belonging to Assault Unit 4 turned into plasma, the 20 lives on board gone in the blink of an eye. Ugh. Layfear's eyebrows creased. The patrol ship's laser pierced the boss roar. The assault ship was small, but even so, the blow didn't amount to much. What got damaged? Layfear knew that she needn't have opened her mouth for that info to reach her ears, but she couldn't keep herself from asking. This was the first dent on her first ship. There's a hole in storeroom 14, said Jint. That's fine then. Storeroom 14's unmanned. It's not pressurized to begin with. It's fine, you say, said Samson. That's where we've got a fair few important replacement parts stored. Let's hope they're not trashed. Come on, we can get them resupplied in no time, Jint said placatingly. We'll be throwing out components that've never been used. Do you know how upsetting that is? Is he distracting himself from his fear by griping about things of no consequence? Layfear conjectured. Suddenly, the patrol ship revved its attitude control engines to the maximum extent, and the class shifted dramatically. The enemy's bow was now zooming for their ship. The boss roar's EM cannons were pointed at it. I clear the boss roar to withdraw for now, came Ados Raiwa's fretful voice. Split from their space-time. Layfear shouted. Hurry. Roger. Even as Sawbash looked to commence space-time severance, Layfear kept pulling the trigger without a second's pause. For nuclear fusion shells were launched at the star pilots. One shell was impeded by an antiproton current and detonated prematurely. The other three, however, continued tearing straight toward them. Ekryua intercepted with the mobile laser cannons, but they had no effect. Layfear had had her eyes closed the entire time in order to focus her Frokras, but now her eyes reeled open. Is this the end? But they managed to scrape away from the patrol ship's space-time by the skin of their teeth. Sweat drenched Layfear's tan skin. Before she knew it, she was brushing the bluish-black bangs stuck to her forehead. That was close, wasn't it? Said Sawbash relaxedly. Yes, Layfear nodded. She looked at the planar space map. Sure enough, the assault units previously behind them were now fusing with the enemy's space-time one after the other. I wonder whether we'll get any other chances. Layfear was simultaneously relieved and disappointed. We're fusing again, she ordered, regardless. The boss roar had been advised to withdraw for now. They weren't retreating. Roger that. Sobash's fingers danced on his console. Samson's expression screamed, here we go again. His inner thoughts were virtually audible. Shouldn't we just leave it to them? Yet the boss roar returned to the grounds of battle. The one shared space-time bubble was being churned by dozens of different ships' space-time bubble generators. And at the center of this microcosm spluttered the enemy patrol ship, in its final throes. Its magnetic shield was down, and it couldn't even shift attitude without difficulty. Despite all that, the EM cannons on its bow and stern were roaring unceasingly. It's like we're torturing it to death, commented Jint to himself as he watched the scene outside through the video footage. Can't say I'm a huge fan of fighting like this. You shouldn't be so particular, chided Ekryua. Assault ships are too weak, Layfear remarked. This is the only way we can fight against giant ships. I know, Captain, I know. Jint turned off the live feed and engrossed himself in surveilling the ship's internals. Layfear sensed the showdown was nearing its end, and she let up on the trigger. I might as well make this next shot count. Aiming to deal the patrol ship the finishing blow, Layfear took them closer. I know you came back to help, Boss Roar. Adostraiwa's voice broke in, but all ships, fall back. I repeat, all ships. Evacuate this time-space post-haste. But why? Blurted Layfear. We'll be making it blow in next to no time. I understand, but these are orders from Squadron Command. The Battle Line Warship Squadron is in position, and they are to finish it off using mines, the Hecto Commander informed them, speaking rapidly. Then there's nothing for it. Space-time severance, ordered Layfear. After all, Squadron Command's decision was probably wise. No matter how close to the brink of complete destruction they had the enemy, they'd still need to sacrifice one or two allied ships before the patrol ship fell. Given that fact, it made sense to secure the patrol ship's demise through mobile space-time mines, which would keep star pilot lives out of the line of fire. So the assault units only served to stop the enemy in its tracks, I take it. Layfear didn't like the idea, but that was just the way things were. Upon splitting off back into their own space-time bubble, she took another look at the planar space map. An innumerable swarm of lightweight space-time bubbles were splitting from the battle line warship squadron and racing toward the enemy bubble in neat lines. Talk about overkill, Moped Samson. They watched as the swarm of mines merged with the enemy ship's bubble, and the bubble burst before their eyes. They couldn't help but feel as though everything they did up until that moment had gone to waste. In any case, she'd emerged from her first battle unscathed. "Anybody want something to drink?" asked Jint.